What up, everybody? In Power Book 2 Go Season 3, need a way to move Noma's product fast after Obi had just got done letting the crew know the consequences of not meeting their quota and showing them the pictures of Diana, Brayden's parents, and Tariq's grandmother, Estelle. And because the Costellos had a foothold in Brooklyn, Kane wanted to take them out and take their territory. But Drew came up with the idea to take out the Costellos' Russian plug instead and force the Costellos' hand to work for them. But Kane asked Brayden to do this job because Kane and Drew needed to make sure that it didn't trace back to them, letting the Costellos know they were involved. Kane was thinking he could trust Brayden to handle this, still thinking that he was the one who took out Lauren at the end of Season 3. But because Brayden still had never caught a body up until this point, he froze up and was about to get smoked by the Russian boss when Tariq stepped up and smoked the Russian boss and saved Brayden's life in the process. Then Tariq, Brayden, and Effie all ran to an Italian restaurant to hide out, and when they sat down to the restaurant, Tariq might have foreshadowed a future problem with the Russians. Tariq told Brayden and Effie, "That's not the last we've heard from the Russians though, and that they gotta keep their heads on a swivel." But Tariq made it through the rest of Season 3 without having to worry about the Russians at all. But it was the Tejadas and Costellos that had problems with the Russians because Drew killed the next Russian boss in line in retaliation for what he thought was them killing Lorenzo. But Monet was able to finesse the Russians into ending any kind of beef with her family when she brought the Russians' new boss, Kai's head on a platter. Kai's crew was somebody else that the Russians had beef with, and Monet told the Russian boss that Kai played them both, that he killed Lorenzo and made it look like it was the Russians so they would retaliate against them. But before Monet did this, in the middle of their beef with the Russians were attacking the Tejadas' trap and messing up business. So Tariq made a tip through Tate that got their shipments seized and even more of their men arrested. Moving forward to end of Season 3, things were completely different. The Tejadas ended up doing what was Kane's first instinct and completely wiped out the entire Costello family. They had to do this after Drew killed Gordo as part of the play Monet made, finding someone to pin Lorenzo's death on. So most likely at this point, the Tejadas have already moved a crew into the Costellos' old territory in Brooklyn to move Noma's weight. Because while they're going to be at war with Tariq, at the same time they're still going to have to move Noma's weight and meet their quota, which will be all the more harder without Tariq and Brayden moving product on Wall Street, either though that had been shut down anyway. But the Season 4 trailer shows Noma, Effie, and the Tejadas where last season picked off, telling them that her Tariq problem gets solved today. So Noma doesn't waste any time with Tariq leaving that warehouse and sends all her goons after him, including the Tejadas. Because in the scene where Drew gets hit by the truck that Tariq's driving, he's also wearing the same clothes he was wearing in the warehouse. So something's going to interrupt Tariq's plan of taking Drew out at the time because there's still a lot of other scenes with Drew in them. But there was also the picture from the Ghost IG page with Drew in the same clothes looking like he just got beat up. It also looks like Drew got his hands behind his back like he might have been arrested. So this might be from the police department and Drew might just got beat up by the cops. But because the fact that Tariq and Brayden are going to get away and Noma's Tariq problem won't end the day she said it will, she will be putting extra pressure on Effie and the Tejadas to take out Tariq. And because they weren't able to take Tariq out themselves, it looks like they're going to turn to the Russians to do their dirty work. This is likely because Tariq will have a shoot-to-kill mentality with Effie and the Tejadas, and they're probably thinking that it's too big of a risk to go at Tariq themselves. But at the same time, they could also be thinking if they turn to the Russians, then Tariq won't see the Russians coming. Because in the Season 4 trailer, we see Effie and Kane step into the Russian boss. So Effie and Kane are going to likely tell him that Tariq killed their old boss, and that he was also responsible for leaving the tip with Councilman Tate that got their products seized and their men locked up. So Effie's going to try to finesse the Russians like Monet did, because we know she can't tell them everything because Kane is standing right there with her, and Kane was who ordered the hit. Also, is she going to be willing to say that she was with Tariq at the time? Because Monet was able to use the fact that Kai was their enemy already to convince them that he played both sides. Also, she was a victim of Kai just as much as they were because she claimed that he killed her husband also. In addition to that, she wasn't actually looking for the Russians to do anything for her. She was just supposedly shedding light on the situation, on how everything was a misunderstanding, and even brought him their enemy's head on a platter. So Effie's going to be talking to the Russians under completely different circumstances, But also a key difference is Monet showed up as an enemy, while Effie shows up to the Russians as a stranger. But even being involved at all in their boss's death could put her at risk also. And what motive are they going to use that Tariq had for killing their boss in the first place? Tariq is no known drug dealer in the streets, and what did he have to gain by killing their boss? So Effie better come with some good talk, or she could be exposing herself and Kane. Because right now the Russians likely think that it was Kai or one of his men that killed their boss, because of the fact they already have beef. So bringing this back up will only open up old wounds with the Russians. So there's a chance he's going to see through whatever lie Effie goes to tell him. But at the end of the day, Tariq was the shooter, and the boss who is in charge now was also waiting in the car the night of the shooting. And he was one of the guys who chased Tariq down the street when they ran into the Italian restaurant. So if Effie and Kane can bring dude a picture of Tariq, he might have got a good enough look at Tariq the night of the shooting to know that Tariq was indeed the shooter. And also keep in mind, Braden was standing there talking to the guy for a while before Tariq finally pulled the trigger. So if they didn't get a good look at Tariq, there's a good chance that they got an even better look at Braden. And they're going to be able to connect the shooting to Tariq through Braden. Maybe she got a picture of the two together to make the connection. So either though this does expose Effie and Kane somewhat, for them at this point it might be worth the risk. Because Noma might be threatening to kill them by this point if they don't take out Tariq. She might have even given them a deadline. Keep it in mind the clip from the trailer with Kane being held and choked in a chair and Noma walking in Kane's direction with a scalpel in her hand. Then there's also the clip from the teaser with Kane in a cage fight. Could one of these or both of these be consequences, like Noma likes to say, for not getting rid of Tariq? So while Kane and Effie have to worry about Noma, this could potentially create even more problems for Tariq moving forward if he ends up resolving his problem with the Tejadas when the truth about Tariq not being Monet's shooter and Diana and Drew's plan is revealed. But at the same time, in an attempt to get from under Noma's thumb and get out the game, could Effie be trying to kill two birds with one stone and have the Russians handle Noma also? Keep it in mind they're still going to need to give the Russians a motive for Tariq killing their boss. They could simply say that Tariq worked for Noma and she put the hit out. So then they could even get the Russians to take out Noma also, and probably a lot easier than Tariq because Tariq is an enemy who they can't predict his whereabouts or his next move. But now being under Noma, they can tell the Russians Noma's every move. This could also benefit Kane if he becomes Noma's number 2 if she kills Obi when she finds out he was helping Tariq, because he could take over Noma's entire operation or start getting his weight from the Russians, who may be easier to work for than Noma. And there you have it. Why is Effie turning to the Russians? Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.